children, we go ahead to the next topic of this chapter, that is the advent of Mahatma Gandhi. That means the coming of Mahatma Gandhi, and we are going to look at the phase of Mahatma Gandhi leading the national movement. Okay, so let's give you a brief history about Mahatma Gandhi. As all of you know, his full name was Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, born on 2nd October 1869 at Porbandar in Gujarat. Okay, he completed his education in India and went to England to study law. He came back to India and then he got a job in South Africa as a lawyer. So he went to South Africa in 1893 and he remained there till 1914. And there he witnessed a racial discrimination between the whites and blacks, which was called as apartheid. And he joined that movement in order to fight for the apartheid, fight for the blacks, for their rights. And in that context, he came in this campaign in South Africa. He came in contact with various kinds of people, of Indians of various societies, the Hindus, Muslims, Parsis, Christians, Gujaratis, Tamils, North Indians. So he from South Africa itself, since he participated in the apartheid movement, he already was a mass leader. What is the meaning of mass leader? That means he was widely known by people. And in 1915 he arrived in India from South Africa, and he decided that he will fight for the rights for the Indians. So in the first year, he decided to travel all around the country, understand the people's needs and the overall situations. So he realized that the only way to have a national movement is the participation of the entire Indians and the entire masses, and they have to be united among themselves. Otherwise, this movement will not work. And some of the techniques that he applied were satyagraha, non-violence, Swadeshi, and social reforms, and he believed in Hindu-Muslim unity. So these were some of the techniques he applied, and that's how he became as a mass leader for this national movement. And now we are going to learn about this Gandhian phase of the national movement. Okay children, as I told you, in the very first year when Gandhiji arrived in India in 1915, he traveled throughout the country. Okay, and why did he want to travel throughout the country? Because he wanted to understand what the people feeling about the British government and the overall situation, how to make this national a mass movement. So he traveled, and his first earlier interventions were in the local movements. Now the first intervention was he went to Bihar, that is a place called Champaran, where in 1917 he fought for the indigo planters who had suffered in the hands of the British. I told you, indigo planters, the farmers were forced to grow indigo, and the roots of the indigo plants went so deep into the soil that the soil lost its fertility and the farmers could not grow food crops. And even after the indigo produced, whatever they got, the money was very less to feed their family. So he lived in a cycle of debts and loans. So he fought for their rights. So he achieved certain success in that. And then he also in his initial success was also he's made a settlement of the dispute of the workers and mill owners of Ahmedabad cotton mill workers. He settled their disputes, fought with the British, got them compensation. Then in Gujarat, again another place called Kheda, where he struggled against the collection of land revenue when the crops failed. Even if the crops failed, like Lagan movie I've seen, even if the crops failed, they had to pay the taxes. So he fought for their rights, and he received initial success. And while he was going around the country, he came in contact with great leaders like Rajendra Prasad and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Children, we go ahead with the next topic, that is the Rowlatt Satyagraha. Now on 6th April 1919, the British government passed a Rowlatt Act. Now what was this Rowlatt Act? The Rowlatt Act was that the Act gave the British the powers to imprison anyone without trial or search any place without warrant. So this act actually curbed the fundamental rights such as the freedom of speech and expression and increased police power. Now the leaders, all the leaders, Gandhiji, we see Mahatma Gandhi, Muhammad Ali Jinnah and others strongly oppose this act, and they call this act as devilish and tyrannical. They criticize this act totally, and then Gandhiji gave a call for Satyagraha movement against the Rowlatt Act that was passed by the British, and asked the people to observe 6th April as a day of humiliation and prayer, but on a non-violent manner. Okay, and he also launched Satyagraha Sabhas all over the country. Okay, so so what is the meaning of Satyagraha? Satyagraha means the power of truth, and he wanted to use this technique. It is said that a person who walks on the path of Satyagraha remains peaceful and does not accept anything wrong. In fact, he wanted to arouse the conscience of the people who are doing something wrong, especially the British. He wanted them to realize that they are doing something wrong, and he wanted to fight everything in a non-violent manner. His strategy was that we will not use violence under any conditions. Okay, he said that the weapons, people who use the weapons are the ones who are coward, but the strong ones are the ones who do not use any weapons. They fight silently in a non-violent manner. So after this act, Gandhiji set up Satyagraha Sabhas all over the country. Okay. Children, in protest of the Rowlatt Act, there were Satyagraha Sabhas were launched all over the country, and it turned out to be the first all India struggle against the British government. Although it was only restricted to the cities, but by April 1991 there were a number of demonstrations and hartals in the country, and now the government did not know what to do. So since there were so many demonstrations and hartals, now they wanted to use brutal measures. Brutal means except just catching everyone, beating them and putting them into jail. So, but the jails were getting filled with this because people were very, very annoyed with the Rowlatt Act, and this led to one happening called the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Okay, on the same year 1919, on 13th April, it was a Baisakhi day, and people had come out to greet each other. And since the Britishers had already passed a law that nobody will gather in groups, and the people in Amritsar gathered in a bagh which was called as Jallianwala Bagh. So General Dyer then ordered his armed forces to block the gate and opened fire. And it is said many were killed. Okay, many innocent people were killed in this Jallianwala Bagh massacre. What is massacre? When many are killed at the same time. And this was not liked by Gandhiji and many other leaders. Children, after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, the Indians were absolutely annoyed with the British. They were enraged with the British. And even great leaders were horrified with this kind of an act by the Britishers. They never expected this to happen. And Rabindranath Tagore, who was given a title by the Britishers, it is called as knighthood, and they will be called as Sir. He said, I don't want this title. Why is this title given? The Britishers give this title as an honor for the exceptional services that they do. So he was given this title. He says he gave it back. He renounced his title of knighthood and said, I don't want it if you continue to kill such innocent people in our country. Okay, so he gave up his titles. Many leaders joined him in this process, and people became united. And the best achievement after the Rowlatt Satyagraha was that the Hindus and Muslims were united in the fight against the British rule. And this is what Gandhiji wanted. He always saw India as a land of all the people who lived in the country, the Hindus, the Muslims, and all other religion. And he was keen that Hindu Muslims support each other in this cause. Just cause. So for him it was an achievement, because all of them were not happy and absolutely annoyed and angered and enraged by the British rule for this kind of an act that they did.